Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Tonight, we are diving into the wild world of geopolitics. Buckle up because we're about to talk about something that sounds exciting but is actually a recipe for chaos, brand new countries. You might think, new country, free stuff, sign me up. But hold your horses, friend. Starting a new country is like trying to assemble IKEA furniture during an earthquake. It's messy, confusing, and there's a good chance someone's gonna end up with a Swedish meatball where their living room should be. So why is creating a new country like navigating a minefield of potential disasters? Let's break it down, shall we? First, you've got to draw lines on a map, and let me tell you, people get really attached to those lines. Changing them? That's how you start wars. Then there's the whole who's in charge question. And don't even get me started on the economy. Imagine splitting your bank account with your roommate after a messy breakup. Except your roommate is now a whole other country. Okay, so you're still skeptical. You think maybe I'm being a tad dramatic? Well, my friends, history is littered with examples of new countries that quickly learned the hard way that independence is not all sunshine and roses. Take Yugoslavia, for example. Once upon a time, it was all one big, happy-ish socialist federation. Then boom, the Berlin Wall falls, communism crumbles, and suddenly everyone and their pet goat wants their own country. Cue the ethnic tensions, the border disputes, and a brutal war that lasted for years. Not exactly a Hallmark movie, is it? And let's not forget about South Sudan. In 2011, they finally gained independence from Sudan after decades of conflict. People were hopeful, optimistic even. This was their chance for a fresh start. But things went south pretty quickly. Internal power struggles erupted, a brutal civil war broke out, and the country is still grappling with violence, poverty, and famine. So, before we start carving up the map willy-nilly, maybe we should learn from the past, So, let's say you've managed to declare independence without a full-blown international incident. Congratulations! Now comes the really hard part, actually running the place. You see, new countries often suffer from what we in the political science biz call a power vacuum. It's like that awkward silence after someone tells a bad joke. Except instead of crickets, you've got competing political factions vying for control. Without established institutions, a shared national identity, or a strong legal framework, things can get messy real fast. Imagine a game of musical chairs, but the chairs are government ministries. The music is the constant threat of violence, and the players are all armed with wildly different ideologies. Add to that the fact that many new countries are born from conflict, and you've got a whole other set of challenges. So yeah, building a functional, stable democracy from scratch, it's not for the faint of heart. Alright, so you've got your political situation, sort of, under control. Now let's talk money, shall we? Because starting a new country is expensive, and it's not like there's a new country starter pack you can pick up at Costco. New countries often start with a whole bunch of debt, little to no infrastructure, and maybe a rusty tractor if they're lucky. They've got to build everything from scratch: roads, schools, hospitals, you name it. It's like moving out of your parents' basement. Except you also have to build the house, install the plumbing, and wire the electricity. All while dodging calls from your new landlord, the International Monetary Fund. And let's not forget about the brain drain. When a new country is born, educated and skilled professionals often flee the uncertainty, seeking better opportunities elsewhere. So yeah, starting a new country is not exactly a get-rich-quick scheme. Section 5. Border disputes and beyond, how new countries spark conflict. Okay, here's where things get really dicey. Remember those lines on the map we talked about earlier? The ones people get super attached to? Well, drawing new ones is a surefire way to start some international drama. You see, borders are rarely neat and tidy. They often cut through ethnic groups, historical regions, and most importantly, valuable resources. And when you've got multiple groups claiming the same piece of land, things can escalate faster than a game of Monopoly with your family. Think about India and Pakistan. Their partition in 1947 led to one of the largest mass migrations in human history, accompanied by violence and bloodshed that still casts a shadow on the region today. The point is, creating new countries often means creating new conflicts. Section 6. The domino effect. When one separation inspires others. Here's another fun fact about new countries. They're kind of contagious. Think about it. If one region successfully secedes and forms its own country, it can inspire other groups with similar grievances to do the same. It's like when you were a kid and all the cool kids were doing something dangerous. so you just had to try it too, even though your mom told you not to. This domino effect can be particularly destabilizing, especially in regions with a history of ethnic or religious tensions. One country's quest for self-determination can quickly snowball into a cascade of secessionist movements, leading to widespread instability and violence. So, yeah, the birth of one new country can sometimes feel like the beginning of a very messy geopolitical game of Jenga. Section 7. Identity crisis, nationalism, and its discontents. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, nationalism. It's often the driving force behind movements for independence, and it can be a powerful tool for uniting people around a shared identity. But here's the thing about nationalism, it's a bit like fire. In the right hands it can provide warmth, light, and even cook your dinner, but in the wrong hands, it can quickly burn out of control, consuming everything in its path. When nationalist sentiment is hijacked by opportunistic leaders or used to demonize and exclude certain groups, it can have disastrous consequences. Think about the rise of Nazi Germany or the Rwandan genocide. In both cases, twisted interpretations of nationalism were used to justify unspeakable horrors. The point is, while a shared sense of national identity can be a good thing, it's important to be wary of the dark side of nationalism. Section 8. The struggle for recognition, international relations, and new states. Alright, so you've declared independence, formed a government, and hopefully managed to avoid plunging your fledgling nation into utter chaos. Congratulations. But don't pop the champagne just yet, because now comes the really awkward part. Getting the rest of the world to acknowledge your existence. You see, joining the international community is a bit like trying to get into an exclusive club. You need letters of recommendation, you've got to schmooze with the right people, and there's always the chance you'll be stuck in the waiting list for decades. Or worse, rejected entirely. To be recognized as a sovereign state, a new country needs to be accepted by the big dogs of international relations, the United Nations. And let me tell you, those guys don't just hand out memberships like candy on Halloween. Section 9. The price of freedom. Is independence always worth it? So after all of that, you might be wondering, is starting a new country really worth all the hassle? It's a valid question, and there's no easy answer. On the one hand, the desire for self-determination is a powerful force. People want to be ruled by their own, they want to preserve their culture and language, and they want the freedom to shape their own destiny. But on the other hand, we've seen time and time again that the road to independence is paved with good intentions and littered with unforeseen consequences. So is it worth it? That's a question that each group must answer for themselves. Section 10. Case study, the fragile birth of a nation. Let's take a look at a real-world example. Kosovo. This small Balkan nation declared its independence from Serbia in 2008 after years of conflict and ethnic tension. Kosovo's journey to statehood has been anything but smooth sailing. While it's been recognized by over 100 countries, including the United States and many European Union members, it still faces significant challenges. Serbia, along with its allies Russia and China, refuses to recognize Kosovo's independence, arguing that it remains an integral part of Serbian territory. This lack of international consensus has hampered Kosovo's economic development and integration into international organizations. Kosovo's story is a cautionary tale about the complexities and challenges of new nation building. Section 11. A world on edge navigating the challenges of new countries. So, there you have it, folks. The messy, complicated, and often dangerous reality of new countries. From border disputes and economic woes, to political instability and the ever-present threat of conflict, starting a new country is not for the faint of heart. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. With careful planning, inclusive governance, and a healthy dose of international cooperation, perhaps new countries can avoid the pitfalls of the past and build a more peaceful and prosperous future. That's our show for tonight. See you next week.